Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a topic that literally sits at the absolute core of every single essay, research project, or academic paper you will ever read or write, for that matter. We're getting into Lesson 13, Academic Integrity and Plagiarism. Whether you're stepping into a university classroom for the very first time or, you're a seasoned researcher, understanding the foundational rules of academia is totally non-negotiable. It's the framework that holds the whole academic world together. So let's get focused and break down exactly what this means for you and your work. We've got a really clear roadmap for today. Number 1, what is plagiarism? 2, intentional versus accidental plagiarism. 3, the consequences of cheating. 4, why academic integrity matters. And finally, number 5, how to avoid plagiarism.
All right, Section 1. What is plagiarism?
Now, before we hit the formal definition, what do you actually think plagiarism means? Like, is it just copying your buddy's homework, or is it something deeper? The linguistic history here is actually fascinating. The word plagiarism comes from the Latin word plagiarius, which literally translates to kidnapper. Yeah, kidnapper. I want you to keep that exact image in your mind. Because when you commit plagiarism, you aren't just breaking some arbitrary school rule. You are, in a very real academic sense, kidnapping someone else's intellectual property. You're basically holding their ideas captive under your own name. So, moving from that historical route to our modern academic standard, here is the hard, definitive rule from our source material. Quote, plagiarism is passing off someone else's work as your own without acknowledging the source. End quote. That is the golden rule you absolutely have to memorize. Plagiarism is fundamentally about presenting someone else's ideas as if you just magically came up with them yourself. There is this strict, unbending requirement in academia to acknowledge your sources. Simply put, if you use it, you must cite it. Let's look at what passing off someone else's work actually looks like in practice, because honestly, some of these common pitfalls might surprise you. Obviously, copying and pasting text directly from a website, that's plagiarism. But it also includes poor paraphrasing without credit. Just tweaking a few words in a sentence from an article and dropping it into your essay doesn't make that idea yours. Another massive pitfall is incorrectly citing a source, which completely misleads your reader. And finally, there's self-plagiarism. This is handing in work for an assessment that you've already submitted somewhere else. Basically, you just can't gain credit twice for the same piece of work. Moving right along, Section 2, intentional versus accidental plagiarism. So there's this really common misconception that if you didn't mean to cheat, well, you haven't plagiarized. But as you'll see, your intentions don't always protect you. On one side, we have intentional plagiarism. This is the obvious stuff where a student absolutely knows they're cheating, downloading a whole report from an essay bank, paying a professional agency, or just deliberately cutting and pasting. On the flip side, we have accidental plagiarism. And this happens through totally honest mistakes. Maybe it's poor note-keeping while you're researching, forgetting to put quotation marks around a direct quote, or even wrongly assuming an idea is just common knowledge that doesn't need a citation. But here is the critical takeaway, and you really need to hear this. Regardless of which column your action falls into, accidental plagiarism is still heavily penalized. Ignorance of the rules is not an excuse. To a professor, accidental and intentional plagiarism often look exactly identical on the page. Plus, universities today use some seriously sophisticated software, like Turnitin, to spot on original content. And guess what? The software does not care if you meant to cheat or if you just forgot a bracket. A missing citation is simply a missing citation. Which brings us to Section 3, the consequences of cheating. So what actually happens when that software flags a paper? Well, the penalties for getting caught are severe. And sure, they vary across different departments and institutions. At the lower end, you might receive an automatic fail grade for that specific assignment, but it scales up super fast. You could fail the entire course, or in the absolute worst cases, face total expulsion from the institution. And beyond just the immediate grades, you lose your academic reputation. Think about it from a professor's perspective. Plagiarism is incredibly irritating, and it's a huge waste of their time. Nobody wants to be treated by a doctor or served by a pharmacist who cast their exams by cheating, right? And hey, beyond the whole institutional software thing, remember that your tutors are actual experts in their field. They are highly skilled at detecting plagiarism just by reading your work. They're constantly on the lookout for obvious telltale signs. Think about it. A paragraph filled with basic grammatical errors right next to a paragraph with sophisticated, flawless academic prose? Yeah, that stands out. When work is obviously way above the level of the student or shifts wildly in style, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Let's shift gears a bit. Section 4. Why academic integrity matters. Looking at the ethical and practical reasons behind all these strict rules, the crucial point is captured just perfectly in this analogy from our sources. It says, anything borrowed from another author must be given back by acknowledging it properly. I love that. It makes complex academic rules feel like, well, basic human decency. Just like you wouldn't walk into a friend's house and just steal their belongings, you shouldn't walk into someone's academic work and steal their ideas. The true value of integrity goes way, way beyond just avoiding punishment. I mean, at university, you're there to learn, right? By doing the work yourself, you maintain basic honesty. But more than that, you demonstrate actual competence in your field. If you rely solely on cutting and pasting other people's brilliance, you are literally robbing yourself of the opportunity to develop your own unique academic voice. Making mistakes and figuring out how to articulate really complex ideas, that is exactly how you grow as a scholar.
All right, final stretch. Section 5, how to avoid plagiarism.
Let's put all these concepts into practice with a really concrete toolkit. Step 1. Be informed. Actually go and read your specific university's policies. Step 2. Be honest. Don't try to deceive your tutor. Step 3. Be professional. Follow standard academic conventions by referencing absolutely everything you take from another source. And finally, Step 4. Be cautious. If you're ever sitting at your computer at 2 a.m. wondering, does this need a citation? Just include it anyway. You are never going to get penalized for being too transparent about where you got your information. To integrate that research safely, you need to use the 3 main forms of citation. First up is the summary. That's where you concisely present the main ideas of a much longer text. Second is the paraphrase. This is where you express an author-specific idea but using your own completely new language and sentence structure. And third is the quotation, where you use the exact phrasing of the original source enclosed in quote marks. But listen, no matter which of these 3 you use, you must always, always attach a reference. Ultimately, proper citation is really about balance. When you paraphrase or summarize correctly and you weave those citations smoothly into your text, you're demonstrating your actual understanding of the source material. You definitely don't want to just string together a massive list of quotes. You want your readers to hear your voice, your analysis, and your narrative, supported by the original authors, not the other way around. So mechanically, how do we actually do this? Well, there are always 2 strict parts to an academic reference. First is the in-text reference. This happens right in the body of your essay, usually just the author's surname, the date of publication, and sometimes the page number. It tells the reader right in that exact moment whose idea this is. But that in-text reference points directly to the second part, the references section or bibliography at the very end of your document. This is where you provide the full exact details, the publisher, the place of publication, the full title. This way, anyone reading your work can go track down that exact source themselves. Both components are strictly required, no exceptions. To summarize the absolute core takeaway of this explainer today, there is a strict, undeniable requirement to acknowledge your sources clearly and accurately. Remember, as an academic, your written work doesn't have to be absolutely unique out of thin air. You are expected to read and build upon what others have done. That's how it works, but it must be original to your own reading and your own thinking. Define your ideas clearly, and when you use someone else's, give them the credit they deserve. I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought as you prepare to write your next paper. Tying it all the way back to that Latin root word we started with, when you look down at your screen, are your ideas truly your own, or are you just kidnapping someone else's? Keep that question in mind, always double-check your citations, and you will navigate the academic world with total integrity. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, happy writing.